On a seemingly ordinary day, he walked the familiar streets of his hometown, a heavy cloud of frustration hanging over him. His life was anything but remarkable, a dull, repetitive routine with no sign of change. Yet, today, fate had other plans. While waiting at his favorite bagel shop, he noticed something odd. A glowing light seemed to shimmer in the corner of his eye. He turned to find nothing out of the ordinary, or so he thought. But as he reached for his usual order, the world around him shifted in an instant. Was it a trick of the mind, or had something extraordinary just begun? When he opened his eyes, the familiar surroundings of the shop were gone. Instead, he found himself in a lavish room filled with ornate furniture and an air of elegance that didn't belong to his world. But what shocked him more was his reflection in the mirror. He wasn't himself anymore, or at least not the version of himself he had always known. His once average frame was now something out of a fantasy, and his plain features had been transformed into a face that seemed unreal. How could this be happening? And why did it feel like the world itself was watching him? Before he could make sense of the changes, a voice broke the silence. "You finally arrived," it said, carrying a tone both familiar and foreign. He turned to find a girl standing in the doorway, her presence commanding yet oddly comforting. She seemed to know him, though he had no memory of her. Her piercing gaze held a mixture of curiosity and amusement, as if she was studying him. "Do you even know what you've become?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. Her words struck a chord deep within him. What had he become? And why did it feel like she held the answers to questions he hadn't even thought to ask? She introduced herself as someone who had been waiting for him, though her reasons were cryptic at best. She explained that he was now part of a world governed by strange rules and hidden dangers, a place where appearances could shape destiny. As he followed her through the bustling streets of this new realm, he realized that the people around him were unlike anyone he'd ever encountered. They carried an air of confidence, their lives seemingly perfect. Why had he been brought here? And what role was he meant to play in a world that seemed so polished yet so fragile? Days turned into weeks, and he began to adapt to his new life. Yet a nagging question remained. Was this world a blessing or a curse? On the surface, everything seemed ideal, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was living someone else's life. One evening, he confronted the girl who had become his guide. "Why me?" he asked, his voice trembling with both anger and desperation. "What is it that makes me so important?" Her response was vague but unsettling. "You're more connected to this place than you realize," she said. What was the price she spoke of? And was he willing to pay it, knowing it could cost him everything? As he delved deeper into the mysteries of his new reality, he uncovered fragments of a truth that left him shaken. This world was built on a foundation of secrets, each more troubling than the last. And at the center of it all was a power he had unknowingly awakened. The girl revealed that his transformation wasn't random. It was the result of a choice he had made long ago, though he had no memory of it. This power had been lying dormant within him, waiting for the right moment to surface. But what was this power? And why did it feel like it was both his greatest strength and his greatest weakness? His newfound abilities didn't go unnoticed. Shadows began to follow him, their intentions unclear but undoubtedly dangerous. One night, he was cornered by a figure cloaked in darkness, their voice cold and menacing. "You don't belong here," the figure hissed, "and if you don't leave, you'll destroy everything." The warning sent chills down his spine. Was this world truly his to claim? Or was he an intruder in a place that didn't want him? Faced with growing threats and mounting questions, he realized he couldn't navigate this world alone. The girl who had been his guide seemed to hold the key to his survival, but even she had her limits. Together, they began to piece together the puzzle of his existence, each discovery bringing them closer to a revelation that could change everything. But just as they thought they were making progress, an event shattered their fragile alliance. A betrayal, a loss, and a choice that would force him to confront the very essence of who he was. Could he rise above the chaos, or would the weight of his new reality crush him? As the final moments of his journey played out, he stood at a crossroads. The girl, once a source of guidance, now seemed like a stranger. The enemies that hunted him grew bolder, their motives more sinister, and the world itself seemed to teeter on the edge of collapse. In a moment of clarity, he asked himself the question that had haunted him from the start. Was this the life he was meant to live, or was it all just an elaborate illusion? The screen faded to black, leaving his fate and the answers to his questions hanging in the balance.